Thank you, PJ. It is time for another edition of the Pair and a Spare podcast. We are presented, as always, by our great friends at Jack's Cafe. Make your reservations for a good fall brunch at jackscafe.com, jaxcafe.com. I'm Justin Gaard from The Fan. We've got Chip Scoggins from Football Across America. And do we have Ryan Berns or do we have Randy Byrne? Randy Byrne from GopherIllustrated.com. Who is this man? Randy Byrne. I covered up Chip's face. I got to bring it back down. I was looking for the picture of you, Burnsy. I guess I didn't take a picture of you on Saturday when I discovered that you were not masquerading around as Ryan Burns, but you were Randy Byrne.
Let me try to recreate his face for everybody on YouTube.
Recreate it, but I didn't have a picture of you.
Again. Yeah, put the picture back up. Let me see if I can't make his face here. Just so we got to go. One of those.
A hat.
Yeah.
So it looks like a sharp-looking hat in that credential. But go ahead.
How did that? What happened there?
So, Gardy, did you go through a ton of extra security because of walls?
Actually, no. We can talk about that in a second.
Oh, okay.
We went through the regular security, but remember, we get there really early. We were there at like 7 a.m. They check our bags. They do the dog bit. We're wearing Gopher radio stuff. And actually, it was like the greatest. Michigan is so good for hospitality. It's unbelievable how well they take care of their visitors, but go ahead.
So I actually found out from the Michigan media. Did you know as of like 2-3 years ago, they didn't have like a metal detector that they walk through, no dogs. They just walked in. The media just walked in, didn't have anything. But for this one with walls there, first of all, my flight out was half the plane was either Gopher cheer squad or it was secret service or extra security. But we get there, we're waiting, and then it's they take your bag, you have the dog, and then you got to go through a couple of extra security layers, including an extra wand, there was a few different things. There's guys sitting there with like ARs, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, which one of us do you look? I get it, but goodness gracious. So then we get inside.
Ryan, there's been 2 assassination attempts on a former president. Like, what do you mean? What are we doing? Like,
what are the media going to do? We never even came up to the media level.
It's the perfect plan. Go ahead.
So give the lady my thing. She's like, I give her my license. She goes through, hands me the credential. I don't even look at it. Never pay one mind to it until I see you and you're like, what the hell is that? I look down. Obviously, my initials are RB.
What was the name? Randy Byrne.
Ryan Burns, Randy Byrne. She was flustered. Let me tell you, she was flustered, and there wasn't even a line yet. So I never did go and find Randy Byrne. I actually Googled him. I don't know that he exists.
That's what I'm.
Have a digital footprint.
This whole thing is fraught with danger. Like, first of all, the fact that I saw it before you did, as people might know, I basically go up to Burnsy's navel. He's a tall man, so when I stand right next to Burnsy, I'm basically like midriff area on him, and I'm just so that's right at my eye level. But aren't we a little concerned that you've got a vice presidential candidate in there? You don't get the right pass. You get a pass for a man that I don't think exists.
I'm telling you, he doesn't.
Because you can't find him.
Scoggins type of digital footprint where he doesn't exist. I tried to find him. I can't find him.
Remember, this is the home of Connor Stallions, so anything's possible,
I know,
right?
That's what I mean. No, what they didn't have metal detectors and stuff because Michigan was doing their own stuff. They don't want any digital footprint on anybody. The day that the vice presidential candidate is making a big public appearance, you've got people just wandering around with random credentials. Like, come on, Michigan, let's go. Let's change our best here.
The photo was the best.
Like, I feel like that should be your photo for every Gopher sports credential. I feel like enough people know you around that you could do that. There's our guy, Randy Byrne.
But it does say no. It says no field access.
Sports Byline USA, which I've never heard of that in my entire life.
I've heard of that. That's a reputable outlet, I think.
Really?
It's like
Sports
a stream.
Byline?
Yeah, I've heard of it. It's like
I'm gonna Google
I would think it's kind of like an Associated Press or a UPI or something like that.
Well, the even funnier story with that is after we get done, Andy and I had to sprint to Andy Greeter from the Pioneer Press So they held the elevators for a half hour after the game and delayed the press conferences to let Walls' security and motorcade get out.
Yep.
And so Andy and I are late getting down to PJ's press conference. We have to go 60 flights down all the way to the field where the band is performing.
Yeah.
And so we have to hop over. So I hand some obscure Michigan fan my laptop so I can hop over the fence, and then he hands it back. We sprint across the field. Anyways, we come back. Andy has lost his credential.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
And I have Randy Byrne on mine. So we're trying to get back into the media area. And Andy walks in first. And the guy goes, "Where's your credential?" And Andy's trying to explain it fell off. And he's like, he's not buying it. And I'm like, no. And I put my thumb over the picture. I go, no, he's with me. I swear. Can you imagine if he was like, no, let me see the photo. And it's Randy Byrne and this guy with me.
I'm Randy Byrne. Step aside.
Like
Randy Byrne.
Yeah, the whole
that
thing
is not the most convenient setup either, because
no,
I remember when
because
you have to go down through the stands, right? And
yep.
I remember the year that Jason Giannini kicks the winning field goal, and you're going down through 100,000 people. They're going the other way. They're angry. I'm like, I'm going to get killed before I get to the bottom of this staircase, and then you got to go across the field, and it's not nobody's crying for us, but it's not the easiest place to get to the locker room access.
It is surprising though. Like, I'm always surprised because they do a really good job with everything. Obviously the stadium has had millions and millions of dollars of upgrades. The press box is great. The club levels are great. Everything about it is great. The hospitality is great. Like, we checked in at the tunnel entrance, Bernsey.
Mm-hmm.
The media entrance really wasn't even open yet. We checked in at the tunnel entrance because that's what we had done in the past. And someone there said, well, you're going to have to go around the other side. I said, no problem. We've done that before. We just walk down the tunnel, see everyone who stays will be champions bit and the Rose Bowl stuff that's in the tunnel. It's one tunnel, right, at Michigan.
Yeah.
And then you do have to walk up all those stairs. There's a service elevator you can take on that side that'll take you to the concourse and then walk over. But you also have to, at some point, have a little pride and go, I can take the stairs.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't post game, by the way. I did wait for the service elevator. I said, I'm not doing it. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
But they grabbed a golf cart for us and took us all the way around Michigan Stadium, which I thought was very nice. Like, they take a lot of pride in making it a good, hospitable experience, which I appreciate. But
so you're changing your tune on Michigan, huh?
Well, a little bit on that, yeah. But they've always been good on that. But in part of it, though, and I think I've talked about this on the pod, part of it, though, is their arrogance that you should feel so lucky that you're here and you get to experience what we get to experience every day, just being Michigan men and women, that we're going to show you how special it is here. And in that is a lot of niceties, but also they'll do kind of like Notre Dame. Chipper, you've been there. They'll say, welcome to Notre Dame.
Welcome to Notre Dame.
Your life, Can you believe your life worked out this way, that you got to come here on this Saturday?
Now genuflect.
Welcome to Michigan. Welcome to Michigan, you lucky bastards. So many people would trade with you right now. But it is amazing that their locker room, I'm sure Michigan's locker room is awesome. Their locker room is very small, right? It's under the bleachers. PJ and I have to do the post-game interview like basically in the training room, which is not ideal, especially because the head coach doesn't like people around when we're doing it, like most of them don't. And so that's like a Secret Service clear out too, when I'm back there and the 50 managers are grabbing their laptops and all this stuff that they've got to get downloaded for the plane ride and everything. It's not a very easy place to get around, which is surprising. I don't know what you can do about it, but given that everything else is so first class, it's amazing that is so beyond or below what other, like Huntington Bank, for example, the greatest place to work ever in the Big Ten, for us at least. You got the elevator, goes right down, you go right where you need to go.
You're right there. Well, and you have the band marching by. The band marches up that same tunnel, so you can hear it. You can barely hear the interviews. Well, Royce always tells a story back when he covered a game there. He was young in his career, and it was when Bo Schembechler, I believe, was there. And somehow he was there. They let you on the field early, and he's there with the team. And he got swept up into the locker room. So he's sitting there in the locker room while Bo's giving his post-game speech. He's just kind of like standing there. And then after it's over, Bo kind of looks at him like, who's this guy in our locker room?
Right.
Patrick Royce.
Not tight security there.
No.
Not a lot of I lost my credential too for a minute. It fell off because of the rain. And given I've had a few issues on sidelines in the Big Ten over the years, I was very worried about that. Well, anyway, Randy, it's great to have you on the show. And I think from here on out, you got to be Randy Burns.
He's Randy.
There's just
Randy
no way
Burns.
I can still call you Ryan. Bernsy still works out. It's just Bernsie this time around. It's so good. And you had no idea. You're just walking around like an idiot with Randy Burns' credential. Just going about your life.
Idiot.
Do you think Randy Burns showed up and he was Ryan Burns for the day?
Yeah, I want to know if he got in, and if he did get in, was he wearing my credential? I have so many questions.
It's not good when the vice presidents come in and and they were hyped too, by the way.
They're letting in the riffraff like me.
Every time I went through that media entrance, because I had to go back and forth a couple times, there was a buzz from the security, like, did he come through yet? Is he coming through yet? What's it like? And have you guys ever been around Secret Service?
No.
It's a vibe. Like there's a quiet intensity about, like, you guys all better do what we're telling you to do, or it could get ugly.
Did Wall stay for the whole game and then left, and they had to hold up traffic because of that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they made an announcement in the third quarter that one exit was going to be shut down, and at this point it was like 21-3 or 24-3, and I even said on the radio broadcast, this is the only thing Michigan fans have had to complain about all day, because they started booing basically that they weren't going to be able to go out their normal gate. And that is, I mean, it's nice when people come. Like, I've been to Army-Navy games, and President Trump went to a couple of them, and I always think it's cool. Like the U.S. Open, I remember a couple of presidents went through when I was there, or ex-presidents, but it adds a layer. I mean, it just does. It is a pain in the ass when you've got a high-profile public figure, and you do have to make, because the world revolves around them straight up that day. Yeah. And like, I even remember when President Trump was at Army-Navy, and Nordo and I, Eric Nordquist from The Fan, were walking down to go on the field, because you can do it for like the last 10 minutes at Army-Navy, which is ridiculous. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And we noticed that the motorcade was in like the loading dock area. And so we sat there, and it was ready to roll. And we're like, well, I think he's probably going to walk by here. Like, we should stay. Like, this would be cool to see the president just roll right by. And within like 8 seconds, some plainclothes guy just comes over and goes, and you guys are just going to go around the corner and stand here. And Eric and I are like, yep, yes, sir. No problem. We do not need this. But that's how they talk. Like, they just very sternly tell you nicely, this is what you're going to do.
It's not a conversation.
F around and find out. They're not looking for a response. They are not looking for a response. So it's just funny that on that day, Beavis up there in the top right is walking around with Randy Burns.
Randy Burns.
Beavis.
All right. What do you got? What's the headline of the game, guys? Where do we want to start with the Gophers? A furious fourth quarter rally. I thought for a minute we were going to be talking about one of the most ridiculous comebacks and Gopher victories in history of the program. And it looked that way for about 9 seconds. But what was your main takeaway, or what should we be discussing about this game? Randy, we'll start with you.
Well, I know Chip wants to lead with everybody's favorite onside kick that was an offsides, but it wasn't an offsides, to the point now, Chip, where Fleck got the Big Ten to change something midstream, which I can't remember the last time the Big Ten rectified something in season. I think you guys would have a better recollection than me.
A week after something? No. No. That is a sign they missed it. There'll be so much focus about that. And you hate to say it's a missed opportunity at Michigan, but I felt like that was a missed opportunity, because if you don't self-destruct in the first half, that Michigan team was dying to lose, because they don't have a quarterback. And I texted you guys during the game, book it. They will lose 2 or 3 more games. You can't win big. You're not going to beat great teams with that offense. That quarterback, he's not a quarterback. And he single-handedly changed that game with that throw that got picked off. I mean, that game would have wound up, if he doesn't throw that and they keep running, that game would have wound up being 35, 31, 10, something like that. I just don't think the Gophers are going to come back if he doesn't throw that interception. So the offsides is unfortunate, because to make that call in that situation, you want the guy to be 3 yards over the line, not where you can't even see it. And I know Michigan, I've gotten bombarded by Michigan tweets. I retweeted Burnsy's snapshot and well, look at the illegal touching and there's another guy penalty. But man, if they don't have the block punt and the fumble there early on in the first half, that could have been a different game.
Yeah, I mean, they continue to have these self-inflicted wounds, but I want to stay on the onside kick for a moment. Is to your point, and I said this after the game, I wrote it, we talked about it on Gopher Football Sunday with Guardsy, is if you're going to throw the flag, it's got to be egregious. It's got to be 3 yards off. It's easy. It's an easy flag. And that certainly was anything but easy. Now, in hindsight, when you look at the play under a microscope, you're able to see that Minnesota's blocking before the ball reaches 10 yards. And the way I understand it is that is reviewable if you're already reviewing something on it, which they would have been probably for clear possession or whatever it may be. But just imagine in that world that the Gophers do recover it like they do. You got the ball at the 38-yard line with 90 seconds left. You're down 3. You got a timeout. You're already playing with all of the house's money, the big house's money at that. You're going to be going for the touchdown.
Yes.
But it's unfortunate that the flag was thrown, and now it's to the point where the Big Ten has approved to modify their officiating on onside kicks, where the head line judge and the line judge, I believe, are going to be kind of switching positions. And that's where Fleck issued a statement after he talked to the Big Ten yesterday and said, the Big Ten coordinator of officials informed us the play was too tight to flag. We credit the conference for recognizing need to make the change to ensure accurate calls in the future, which great. 48 hours later, you got your validation, but it doesn't change anything about the outcome.
Isn't it amazing that hasn't come up previously to where they felt so compelled to make the change now that for them to make that change, they would have to say, we have a fundamental flaw in how we look at this play or how we line up and position our officials. That's a pretty significant change for them to say, we're going to take this lead headlines and we're going to put them here so they get a better, more accurate thing. You'd have thought that would have been something like throughout all their discussions off season, like, is there things we can improve, things we can tweak about where we're at that hasn't come up before? And the fact that they did it 2 days after.
Yeah. 2. It was
2
Monday,
days,
right?
It tells you that privately they're like, yeah, we got this one wrong. Like this is, and we would continue to get it wrong if we don't make this change.
Well, it just doesn't happen very often. That's probably why it had never come up, because onside kicks in general are rare. Onside kick recoveries are rare. So when these things don't, so when the other team gets it, even if there is an offsides, nobody really cares. I'm sure they're not double checking to go, hey, we threw the flag for offsides, but they recovered it anyway. Do we even need to look at it again? Like after the game, right? And I said it, somebody tweeted at me after the game, because I started this maybe a month or two ago when the NBA announced that you could now review, when you go back to review who the ball went off of in the last couple of minutes, if there's a clear foul on the play, you can now call that, which was in direct correlation to Jaden McDaniels getting hacked by Kyrie Irving game 2. And so I went through this whole thing on the fan of the only time rules get changed is when they screw over a Minnesota team and they change it in the offseason. And my Twitter line, Lieber, the overtime stuff with the Saints, we talked about, or things get changed that screw up a team like the Minnesota Wild sign guys to 13-year contracts, and then you change the cap and they can't do anything. Or even the Wolves right now, their new collective bargaining agreement comes after they make the trade for Rudy Gobert. So my timeline was flooded. Like, I can't wait for them to change this in the offseason. And so I'm like, yesterday I was like, they couldn't even wait. It was so bad. They couldn't even wait to, when they're all doing Big Ten meetings at Laguna Beach, they couldn't even wait to do it then. They had to do it like the first business day back. It was probably right in the 8:15 meeting in the Big Ten office. They're all there and they say, hey guys, we blew that one. We got to change it. I agree. Like everything you said, Burnsy's right. I don't know if you can review onside kicks. I don't know if you can go back and, and actually, check out if a guy was blocking. So we would have had to live with that. Like that would have been our version of the invalid fair catch, probably, where Gopher fans would have been defending it forever if it was shown that, oh, by the way, there were these 2 penalties on the Gophers that didn't get called. But to me, it was kind of a continuation of, they have a ridiculous spot in the third quarter where PJ wastes a timeout and they never even look at it. They call it, that Daniel Jackson's touchdown was called incomplete. What are we watching, guys? It just seemed like the whole day I think they fell asleep like Michigan did. I honestly do. Yeah. I think they kind of said, this game's over. We're just going to punch our clock and hopefully get out of here before the vice president heads to the Ypsilanti airport. They just seemed out to lunch on a lot of stuff on Saturday.
Well, I saw fans were mad that on the Jackson, when they stripped it out of his hands, that they didn't blow the play dead for.
If that was the NFL, the whistle would have been blown.
Yeah, they could have.
But if you watched it, the officials let some of those Michigan runs too. It's like they just went forever. It's like, blow the whistle. Like that was how they were. That's how they were all day.
Yeah,
they were just slow to blow a play dead. Where I feel like Michigan, particularly in the second half, they got like some extra yards just because the pile just kept moving.
Well, even the one that Fleck challenged, I still my biggest thing is even the refs from this game. It's it was a big noon game. You were the biggest game on the slate. And some of these camera angles, it's like that's the best you had. For the one Fleck challenge, it seemed pretty clear that if there's a better camera angle on the Gopher sideline, Alex Orgy's he's out and it's 2nd and 13. Instead, the spot is somehow 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9 there, and Fleck was losing his mind on the sidelines. Even the interception, I'm pretty convinced his heel was out, but because the call on the field was an interception and there wasn't a better camera angle, they couldn't overturn it. I mean, there were some things in that game where I just want to know, was it the rain that caused them to not have as many camera angles? Because I couldn't understand why. It just happened to be that some of these plays were on the Gopher sideline and they just didn't have, for whatever reason, the cameras.
Yeah, it was it's too bad because I was just fascinated to see what would have happened. I would have just, if they recovered it, because I had a great view of it going down because as you guys know, the ramp kind of goes up, and for a 5'9" guy like me that stares right at Burnsy's navel, it's great to be able to see everything. And I see these dudes just running and the ball go there, and I'm like, holy S. Like, they're actually going to have the ball at the 37. And I'm 100% convinced I think they had a timeout, right? At the time. Like,
yep.
Yeah, they won. Yep.
There's no chance they're playing for 3 there. I mean, they might have taken it, obviously. They might have had to. But it just would have been a fascinating story. And
well, you've already scored 21 points in a quarter, which,
that's it. The way they're
you've scored 21 points. That's the first time an offense has scored 21 points in a quarter against Michigan since 2018. Ohio State did that.
Yeah,
I mean they were moving the ball pretty good in that quarter, I'd say.
That's it. The way they were rolling, and Michigan was gassed on defense. I mean, that tempo really got to them, and we should talk about their offense. I mean, it seems like this year when it's looked the best is when they go tempo. And I hate to say abandon the run, but just at some point, do you say we're not a good running team for whatever reason? We don't run the ball that well. Let's go tempo. Let's try it. Let's get Max Brosner in a rhythm, get the receivers in a rhythm, because it's just whether it was Carolina, that game, it just seems like they click offensively, and their best is when they're going tempo and they put the ball in the quarterback's hands.
Well, Bernsey said the same thing that you just said, and I think that was the smirk that we saw from Randy.
Oh, sorry.
He said it on Sunday with me. I was sitting in this very spot, and I just grabbed the stat sheet from that game, and my response to Bernsey was, Darius Taylor ran it 13 times. Mangum had one nice run, and I think he got banged up. Marcus Major had 2. They've already abandoned the run. They've abandoned it. I mean, 15 carries. And why did Darius Taylor have so many touches? Because they threw it to him 14 times and he had 10 catches. I think that's the new handoff. I really do.
Yeah.
They've pretty much abandoned the run here. And so, which is fine. If that's how you have to move the ball, that's how you have to move the ball, because for whatever the reason, they haven't been able, Darius's longest run was 6 yards. Mangum's was 16 in the first half. That was a nice run. Might have been one of their longest of the year besides Taylor's 80-yarder. But they have abandoned the run, if I'm looking at the stat sheet, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have. And I know that tempo was the talk, and Fleck was asked about it yesterday, and I agree with the theory of Brosmer looks better in tempo. I'd also say the thing I think I've learned about Max Brosmer is he's streaky, but when he's hot, he is lightning hot. But when he's cold, it's not like he's ice cold, because we're still talking about a guy where you look at the stats, he's completing 66% of his throws.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like Ethan where he just completely falls off a cliff and he's missing guys 20 yards high. But when he is lightning hot, like you saw in that fourth quarter, I know all the attention's on the Daniel Jackson grab, which was a sensational catch, one of the best you'll see all year. That was a hell of a throw.
Yeah.
That was an unbelievable throw. So as much as it is about tempo, I would say I still think the number one thing that fixes this offense isn't tempo. It's have the offensive line figure their S out, because they have more penalties. The offensive line has 15 penalties in 5 games. Yeah. That's more than the entire team of Iowa.
The problem is,
I understand Iowa's had a bye week, but that's what I took away from that game is 5 offensive line penalties. Why did the offense struggle to move the ball in the first half? Because they're 1st and 15, they're 1st and 16. And when you're 1st and 15 and 16, plus you have huge drops in there, I mean, it's all just self-inflicted wounds offensively. And that's the thing that I'm sure has to be maddening if you're the offensive coordinator or even PJ Fleck.
Well, in that first half, you saw, the line was just getting pushed back into Brosmer so many times. And one time, they were just on
8
top
tackles
of him before
for
he
loss and 4 sacks in the first half. And then they changed some things over halftime, which we've all been trust me, I hear the fans' emails, smoke signals, Twitter messages. They want to see second half adjustments. Second half, it's not like Brosmer was clean in the pocket, but he wasn't sacked at any point.
Right.
But that's where I think. I mean, you're after this year, this week, you're halfway through your season.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. At some point, it's just this is who you are, right?
Yep.
And that's why I say tempo, get your running backs involved. I mean, the fact that he targeted 14 times or had 10 catches,
14 targets, 10 catches.
So that's how you mitigate your offensive line problems. You slow the defense down by getting it out of your hands quick and go tempo. And so I thought Michigan just didn't adjust to it. I don't know whether they got wore down or tired, but it's hard for a defense when you're going quick like that and you're getting the ball out quick to your playmakers, and there's a variety of who you're throwing it to. As much as we say the offensive line needs to figure themselves out, we might have to say this is sort of who they are, and they're not going to be at the level that we thought they were. Now, you still want to see them improve and get better and more consistent and all that. I'm not saying you just throw up your hands, all that, but I think you have to adjust to what you're seeing in these games too. And I thought they did that in the second half. Now, part of that is they're so far behind and you got to play
fast. You can't run the ball when you're down 20. You're down 3 scores in the second half. You have to abandon the run.
But do you start that from the get-go? Do you come out against USC and say, you know what? We're not even going to try to really run the ball. We're going to use Darius Taylor as a receiver. We're going to go tempo. We're just going to play that way.
Well, the irony is it's the softest run defense they've seen in a few weeks. So it's like you have to – here's my thing. Is in each one of these games coming up, you say the 2 before the bye, USC and UCLA, you have to try to run the ball, and I think you're going to find a little bit more success in running the ball. And if you can, great, go to it. But if you find early that you can't, pull the plug earlier and earlier to where you can run the ball in the red zone and in short yardage, like we saw Darius Taylor's 2 touchdowns, well executed. He's into the end zone. But it has to be more of a focus point on the passing game at that point between the 20s, because for whatever the reason, this veteran offensive line is just – I can't figure it out. And to your point, Chip, this week after the USC game, you're halfway through the season. You are who you are at this point, unless you're going to make more personnel changes up front, which I would, but I'm not Brian Callahan and PJ Fleck. You are who you are. You can't pass protect that well. You certainly can't run the ball, and you've got 15 penalties as a group. You are who you are, and then you got a receiving core who is Max Brosmer has had more passes dropped than any other Big Ten quarterback.
Yeah, that's where I want to go next, because I don't think the first half was not a sterling first half for the receivers. And it's not that I'm watching it and I can see the all 22. I'm watching what's going on the sideline, and Matt Simon's on their ass, right? Basically bringing them up multiple times. And I don't know what he said, but I can imagine what are we doing here, guys? Max Brosmer coming over at least once, basically to rally the troops. And to their credit, they responded because Daniel Jackson wasn't the only one that made tough catches. Lemecki made a couple of nice grabs. Elijah Spencer, who I think got a little bit banged up, had a couple of nice catches as well, fighting for extra yards. I think the first half, to use one of your favorite lines, Chipper, it was the total systems failure, where the offensive line was not protecting, and it didn't appear to me like the receivers were A, getting open, or B, catching the ball when it got there. And then when you factor in, you have a blocked punt and a turnover inside your own 20, there's 14 points, and that's why you're in the meat grinder the rest of the game. But it didn't seem like – we've talked about this for years, Bernsy, on Gopher Football Sunday. It's not always one thing with the passing game. It hasn't always been. Mm-hmm. It's always – and PJ said it too. It's a combination of a lot of different things. And to their credit, the receivers stepped up, I thought, really big time in the second half and made some tough catches. But game started at noon Eastern. You know, you got to be ready to go. Like, you just have to be ready to go.
And that's where on the opening drive you have – your tight end drop a 2nd and 7. That would have been a first down. And then if you get behind the sticks against Wink Martindale and Michigan's defense, which their offense stinks, but that defense does not, like, and you have an offensive line that can't pass protect, that's where it just all compounds upon itself. Heck, we saw one that slipped between Darius Taylor's hands, hit him in the face mask, went up in the air. Daniel Jackson tries to catch it, puts it back up in the air. It's almost an interception, and it hit the guy in the face mask.
Right. But it was almost caught twice and intercepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where, with this receiving core, it was last year, I believe they were top 3 in the Big Ten in drops, just the pass catching core in general via Pro Football Focus. And then this year, like I said, they're number 1 in the Big Ten in drops. So you're dropping passes, you're struggling to pass protect, you're struggling to run the ball. And, oh, by the way, that offensive line's got 15 penalties in 5 games. That's the biggest thing with this offense. That's how you fix it, is stop shooting yourself in the foot constantly. If you just catch the football, don't have your center flinch, don't get these false starts, stop holding, like stop being in 1st and 15 and 1st and 16. And this thing gets so much easier. And I'm sure that's got to be the frustrating part about this thing is, like, defensively, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we will.
Minnesota's on a 6-game Big Ten losing streak. They've allowed 27 or more points in every single one of those games. But offensively, it's just self-inflicted wounds. And they just can't stop compounding upon themselves, which also leads me to, I asked Fleck yesterday. I go, it was the 3rd quarter against Iowa. It was the 2nd quarter against Michigan. When you guys start bleeding, and he really didn't like the bleeding. He wanted to make sure on the record that people knew when he is using my bleeding analogy, that was my analogy, not his, because apparently he thinks he's going to get some emails or thoughts and feelings on that. But I'm like, how do you stop the bleeding before offense, defense, and special teams just compound upon themselves so much that then you spend the rest of the game trying to get out of it? And you guys know this. I mean, Guardsy, you're about to go do a show with him. You know you got him when he kind of thinks and then he says your name a few different times. He's like, Ryan, if I knew, I'd have stopped it by now. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's the answer. I mean, that's the truth. But it's, to your point, Chipper, it's your all Big Ten receiver loses the ball.
Yeah.
Michigan gets it first and 10 in the red zone. The defense can't bow up, touchdown. Your punter has one blocked. Defense get put in a tough spot again.
Yeah.
One play later, it's a touchdown. And that's 14 points, and that's the game. And it's
– well, that's it. They're not good enough to gift many teams 14 points, much less at the Big House in Michigan.
Correct.
And that to me is frustrating because it's like you're gifting a bad offense or an offense that's so one-dimensional 14 points.
Right.
Whereas imagine if you had to make Michigan play from behind with that offense.
Right.
And if you just play a clean game in the drops, I didn't realize they were number 1 in drops in the Big Ten again this year, which these are not like, not all of them, but these are not like spectacular drops. They're just like a guy's open, you hit him in where he should be and he drops it. It's like those are the ones that are maddening because to me that's a focus thing because we can see that you watch the receiver core flip it and then make tough catches and be reliable in the second half. And we've seen it at different times this year. So it's like they're striving for that consistency where they don't continuously put themselves in a hole where they have to dig out of it because, they're just not good enough, really. to play that way. I mean, not many teams are, but
no, not many are, especially kind of at the level that they're at. We talk about all these coin flip games. Like, you can't be giving up that stuff. And this wasn't technically seen as a coin flip game before the season, but I think having watched it, it was there for the taking, right? We all agree.
This is not Michigan last year. This is not Michigan last year.
And I think Saturday is another one of those games. This Michigan team just beat this USC team that's coming to Huntington Bank Stadium. It's obviously different. It's a different challenge, and we'll talk about it. But, yeah, when your margin for error is what it is, you can't afford that stuff. It's really not complicated. You just can't afford to have those cataclysmic critical errors in the first half that make you have to do everything right in the second half. And they almost did. They took the gift of the Michigan interception and ran with it, actually threw with it, and found themselves, within a field goal of tying it or maybe winning it at the end. Anything else offensively? Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious. Again, I will leave it at that, but I'm curious to see the approach and if PJ is more quick to pivot to that tempo offense than if they get behind by 14, 17 points. If it becomes more kind of a staple of who they are.
Well, that was part of his answer yesterday when asked about tempo. Is we had to go to tempo because we were down 3 scores.
Right.
And his point within that is we can't have our defense continually put us in some spots, which, look, I'm not here to tell you the defense was even close to the biggest issue from this game, but you'd like to see them bow up in the red zone is my thing. Or they have forced 1 turnover now in 2 games. Or they're 14th in the Big Ten and getting off the field on 3rd down after. Like, there's so many little things within that to where even the opening drive for Michigan, it's 3rd and 9. You put 7 beyond the sticks. No one spies the running back at quarterback.
Yeah.
Runs for a 1st down. You have Jalen Logan Redding with a John Cena-esque WWE takedown of Alex Orji from the head. And then a 27-yard untouched touchdown run. It's like, okay, we need the defense to be good early. All right, we're down a touchdown. Now they bow up in between the second and third quarters. But even the Gopher offense scores 2 touchdowns, makes it a game. 14 plays, 7 minutes come off the clock, all runs.
And who was the
announcer? They got to make a play here, boys.
You guys didn't see it, but was it Klatt? Joe Klatt, is that who it was? The cover guy. He was losing his mind over the defensive approach on that last drive where
2 deep safeties, or it's a.
He was right. He's like, I tweeted it out before that drive. I was like, if this quarterback beats you at the pass, tip your hat, but you cannot get beat by the run. This kid can't pass. Like, there's no threat of a pass. They're going to run the ball. After he threw that interception, they were not going to throw the ball. And Klatt was like, I don't understand what they're doing. They got 2 safeties. They're way too far from line. Bring everybody up into the box. That's the only way this offense can function. And they just stayed back. It was he was right. I mean, the approach was, and they just kind of methodically went down there and ran the ball. And it's like, that was the only way they were going to win that game, is if you allowed them to run it, because they were not going to beat you with the pass.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't allow a ton of rushing yards, but it's still, there's 27 points on the board. Like, I understand you get put in 2 really tough spots, but imagine if one of those touchdowns is a field goal, how that game changes. And it's the self-inflicted wounds to an extent again. That's the story of this season, is you get these 3 games of North Carolina, Iowa, and now Michigan, and you just can't get out of your way enough to where, I think Fleck has said this before, like, more teams in college football will lose games than other teams will win them.
Yep.
That's been the story of the last 12 months for Gopher football. Think about the Northwestern game, the Illinois game, all these Power 4 games that they're on a now 7-game Power 4 losing streak. At some point, something has to change, or else you're going to continue on this negative trajectory.
All right. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break because we're going to talk about an unbelievable finish in the Alabama-Georgia game. We're going to talk about some Big Ten SEC meetings that are happening, I think, in one of Chip's favorite towns, Nashville, here in the next week or so. And we're going to take a quick break so that Chip can collect his thoughts to talk about Coy Perich's returns on Saturday. We want to make sure he gets his mind in the right spot to tell us exactly what he was thinking and feeling. All of that coming up. But first, our friends at Jack's Cafe, great sponsor of the show, have been for 3 years now. We get weekly tweets and texts from people that take our advice and do a date night or do a happy hour or do a family brunch at Jack's Cafe, a Minneapolis institution for decade after decade after decade. They've got the babbling brook that Bernsy loves in the back, and one of the great patios in all of the upper Midwest. And just a good vibe and a good experience. The food is great. The service is tremendous. You make a reservation, you're going to get a matchbook with your party's name on it, whether it's the Randy Berns family, the Chip Scoggins family, the Pair and a Spare podcast. We have matchbooks made there that we still use to light candles for the aura around the house. It's just a wonderful place, and we hope that all of you take our advice and head to Jack's Cafe, Chip.
Speaking of the matchbook, we used ours this weekend. My wife had gotten out a candle for the kitchen, and she's like, I need some matches. And there it was, the Scoggins family for the last time we went there. What other restaurant in Minnesota or anywhere is going to give you engraved, personalized matchbooks when you come there and you make a reservation? I mean, come on.
It's the details.
That's even where I'm looking at a tweet from one of our listeners, Stephen Madison, and his son went, and they have the matchbook. You know what they put on it? Because I'm assuming that's what was in the reservation. Pair and a Spare. So we got Stephen and his son going out to dinner. We have another couple of Gopher fans who tweeted us over the last week. They went to the bar there and watched the football games. People are taking our advice, Chipper. They're trying
one a week at least. That's a minimum. That's the bare minimum. You want more than one, right? Come on.
Yeah. Well, we love it. And you'll know if you go, you'll see a fellow Pair and a Spare listener if you look at their phone and you see that it's charged to 100%. Because people have been giving us that advice. Chip's been giving us that advice for the last couple of years, and you people have gone about it. So we appreciate Bill. We appreciate Jack's Cafe. If you've got a group party and the holiday season's right around the corner, it feels like fall today for the first time. So certainly we're going to have some holiday gatherings and holiday dining coming up. They can do that for your family, for your business, whatever you want. From 15 to 400, they've got room for you at Jack's Cafe. Make your reservations at jaxcafe.com. So it was one of the stops that the Gophers got. I don't remember the sequence, but I said up to our engineer, Dan Robotham, here comes Coy. Here comes Coy. I'm just going to say I want full credit. I felt it just watching him earlier in the game. His first punt return, which was 20-plus, right? 22 yards, whatever it was. There was an overthrow on third down that Perich was on the field for, and he was flying up. And if that throw was anywhere close, I think he picks it off. Like he was, again, I haven't watched the all-22, but from where I was standing, he was right there.
If that throw is accurate, he's still running. You are
correct. And he came off the field with such a vibe, with such a, I know exactly what the hell I'm doing out here vibe and confidence, and then bounced his way back to go pick up the punt. Like you can just feel his confidence, at least I can, growing on the sideline. And as I said on this podcast, the team knows it too. The team knows who they're dealing with here. It feels different to me than other teammates that are on the field historically in my time on the sidelines. And so that game had a feeling that Coy Perich was going to do something there, right? And he did. A remarkable 60-plus yard return that set up the final touchdown. Chip, how did you process all of it?
Well, there's a reason I've been saying from day one I would have put the ball in that kid's hands because, I drove up to Esco in the winter to spend a day with him. And it was after is it the Army All-American game, Burns? Yep. He was the MVP of? Yeah, the Army All-American game. And I'm like, I was, that surprised you're northern Minnesota and you're down there with the best players in the country and, you're the MVP. And he's like, nah, not really. I mean, I think I'm the best athlete. And then I watched him play basketball that night, and he's windmilling, and the confidence. It's two things: the athletic arrogance that Burnsy that you talk about, which is a great trait to have, but just the explosiveness. And I remember texting some people. I was like, "This kid is just so explosive. The way he bounces off the floor when he jumped." And I think there's some things that are, transition over. When you watch a kid play basketball, you're like, you can see that on the football. He's just an explosive kid.
Right.
He just has a presence about him that if you're a teammate, you follow. You're like, yeah, I'm going to follow that dude. Like he's going to make a play. And he's, And so it doesn't. I said it before the season. I said he's going to return one this year, and it might be multiple because he's just that. He has that good of athletic ability, instincts, feel, and just the bravado to try to go make a play. So it was cool to see. That's what they've been missing. It won't be as last long return. I think he returns one at some point this year. And I would start playing him on defense too, because I just think the more you can put him on the field, he can handle it, and he's going to make plays for you.
If you just give him some blocking like they did on 2 punts, you see the ability and the explosiveness, and how, as Fleck would say, he's very dense, where he is 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds, but he's a very dense. So while he is explosive, can make you miss in a phone booth, he also runs through more tackles than you think because of that.
Yep.
You just need to give him a crease. You need to give him some blocking. And that was the difference between he returns 2 kicks, and he's, in terms of kickoffs, he's tackled by a guy both times that was never touched coming down the field. That's an issue. But then you see what happens when you block it correctly. Give him a seam. He is not afraid to field a punt with a guy 2 yards in front of him bearing down. He thinks he can make a miss.
Right.
Now, we'll find out if that ever comes back to bite him. But yes, 60 yards. I know that when he was streaking down the Michigan sideline, Chip, my watch goes, oh, great. Looks like you started a workout. Good job. And that's the longest punt return they've had since Demetrius Douglas in 2018. So they need more of that. It would be a welcome change to have your offense be able to have better field position because of your returner. So, I mean, I'm all for
it. We talk about you need your special teams to change the game. That changed the game. That allowed them to score a touchdown. Now, all of a sudden, hey, this is a ball game. All of a sudden, now Michigan has doubt. You have to – they have to be able to the way Iowa has done forever, change games with your special teams. And they have a guy now that can do that.
Now they just got to do it in the kicking game, where your punter had one blocked, your kicker misses another 50-yarder, which, look, it's a 50-yard field goal. He's a college kicker, but he's now missed 5 kicks, and every single one of them have been to the right, while Michigan's kicker makes his 50-yarder. I still think one of the funniest random things from this season is Michigan's kicker won Special Teams Player of the Week for his 2 of 2 performance. And it's like every time poor Dragon, he misses a kick, the opposing kicker, like against North Carolina, won the Lou Groza. And then last week, the Michigan kicker wins the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. Or now it's back-to-back weeks where the opposing running back has won Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. It's just like, we know it's an issue, guys. Now you're compounding on itself. But
the kicker ups their game. They know they're going up against the Big Ten kicker of the year.
Everybody knows Dragon's on the other side. I got to be able to up my game, man.
Yeah, you got to tighten. It is. Yeah, I get. It's too bad he's had such an issue from 50, because, as we know, a year ago, it's like the leg is not the problem. I mean,
he was 3 of 4 from 50 plus last year. He's now 2 of 5, and now Flex said yesterday he's going to keep trotting him out there because. What else? But also, what is he going to say? Right. There really isn't another great option on the roster, but. Again, think about in the flip side, if your kicker hits the 50-yarder, Michigan's doesn't. Like, at some point, it's gonna get there with special teams. I believe it. We got Coy now. We're gonna see if they can just get out of their own freaking way with some of these things. Everything is something different every bleep in a week.
Yeah, at some point, it'd be nice to just see everything kind of click for. I'm not even going to say 60. I'll take like 48 minutes. Or 52 minutes, and just to see, because you're right, it's all, even like another illegal procedure, I think, on one of the punts too.
On the block punt, they had an illegal procedure penalty, the third one. Yep.
That's the stuff where it's just, you got to fix that stuff. Like, that's the stuff that has never been an issue with a Fleck team, and that's why it's disheartening, because you wonder what's going on there. It's not like his practices have been any different. You guys, Bernsy, you've been to some. Not as many as you want.
Yeah, you've been to more than me, that's for sure.
But I can confirm they're practicing. He's the same guy that he was in 2017 when they couldn't do anything, but they never had any penalties, right? Like, it's so I don't know why this year all of a sudden these procedural penalties are popping up. Yeah, especially on special teams. Like, it shouldn't be that complicated to line up for a punt. I mean, everybody kind of knows where you're going. I don't think a lot of things are that exotic, but maybe I don't know ball. Maybe I just don't know ball. But it does help, like, to have a guy who can change a game for you. You're going to need that, whether it's this year, next year. Hopefully he's here a while, because he could have one of the all-time great careers here just in that, let alone what we think he's going to do defensively.
Isn't it amazing, like, the charge that he puts into the stadium?
Yes.
Like fans get it. Like they
fans
understand
know.
like this.
They read football across Minnesota last year.
Yeah.
They've been reading about this guy.
Yeah, and it's like that there's a quality about this guy that is different, and fans, it's a excitement that he puts in that stadium, and so I play him as much as he can handle it, and I think he can handle a lot. I know it's mentally, there's coaches have to worry about that and all that processing, but I just think he has an athletic intelligence. I just think he's a guy who, I always, I'm not going to compare it to that, but
go ahead, make a bold statement. This is your guy.
No, I was just
come on.
No, it's not. I'm not comparing him to Maroney, but I was thinking about this. Like, I remember we went to fall camp, Maroney's freshman year, and there was Barber, Tapay, Terry Jackson. The veterans always go first in each drill. They get the first reps, then they work their way down to the freshman or whatever. You'd watch the drills, and you're like, kid's different. Like, it's not going to be long before he's on the field. And, it's one of those things you just don't want to put a freshman out there day one and anoint him. But at some point, the talent rises to the top and you have to play him. And I think we're seeing that with Perich, that he's good enough that he can handle this.
The only other thing I want to mention Gopher-wise before you got USC coming into town, number 11 team in the country, the best passing offense you have certainly faced all season. But I'm hoping that this time next week on this next episode, we're not talking about is this Gopher team for whatever reason just not capable of playing 60 minutes of football. If they play 60 minutes of football, that's why the spread against the number 11 team in the country is only 8.5.
Right.
They're capable until they're not capable. And at some point you have to say, if they can't do it again this weekend, at what point do we think that they're going to be able to? So again, USC is a very difficult team. They're the most explosive team that the Gophers have faced all year. And if you let Miller Moss sit in the pocket, it's going to be a long day. Plus, their defense is much improved. They got the number 1 third down defense in the entire Big Ten. But another 6:30 kick. Only night games this year, especially with UCLA. I know we'll all be out there, and I know, Guardsy, we've gotten some tweets about it.
Yep.
But it's a 6 p.m. kick Pacific time, so you'll get to see the sun set over the mountains, and I'll be great. Have we decided what we're doing for that Friday yet?
Yeah, well, I think, and we can talk it out right here. And I was actually you just jogged my memory because I did want to click on this and just get the details. We're basically we're not going to try to siphon anybody away from what the University of Minnesota has already established, because there's a million planes going out. There's a million fan groups going out. There's a million people that already live in Los Angeles, but I think that's what we want to do, right? Bernsey Chipper is, and I just wanted to get all the details because they are having a soda social on Friday and I'm coming out early just for this, just for you people, Parent Despair listeners. I'm coming out, and I don't know if I'm coming Thursday night or Friday, but I'll be there for this and pulling up the details. It's at Barney's Beanery, Colorado Boulevard, which if you've ever been to the Rose Parade, is on the Rose Parade route. Barney's Beanery in Pasadena from 3 to 6, I assume California time, Friday, October 11th. So Barney's Beanery, 3 to 6, Pasadena, Colorado Avenue. We will be there. Our phones will be at 100%. We will get Bernsey some milk. We will have a rum runner. And so Barney's Beanery they're having them all over kind of the Los Angeles area for people that are staying in Santa Monica that don't want to drive up to Pasadena. They've got a couple different auxiliary ones, but the main one is up in Pasadena, Barney's Beanery on Colorado. See you guys there?
Yeah, I'll be there with you.
I will not be there. You're
not a man of the people anymore. What happened to you?
I will tell you, Friday night, I'm going to watch the future Gopher quarterback play.
You're going
That's actually a pretty good excuse
to go see Jackson Pollock.
But hold on, you can come from 3 to 4. Come on.
How about I'll look. Let me see what time I land. Maybe, but it's.
I'll show up there at 2.
You know, LA traffic. LA.
Relax.
Traffic.
You'll be fine. Let's not do this. Okay. But
you
we'll talk it out. You have to go to Laguna, right?
Yeah,
that's different. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah. But
that's devastating. But that's a great idea. What a good reporter you are. That's a hell of an idea.
That's like something I should do.
You may read about that in a future FAM.
Well, that's football across California, isn't it, FAC?
Well, you're also going to see a football across Minnesota London edition next week. So
Man, what a life you live. What a life you
Gets
live.
to go to London this weekend, California next weekend. The Minnesota Star Tribune must be doing awfully well, Guardsy.
Well, maybe because it is a night game, maybe we'll try to throw something together Saturday for people that are going to be in the area. Maybe we'll
that would be good.
Yeah, because Chip will be at the Rose Bowl. I'm guessing about 9 o'clock for a 6 o'clock kickoff Pacific time. He'll be parked and ready to go.
Bowl, yeah.
All right. So yeah, me too. How can you not? So I'll be doing a live shot for Fox 9 at like 6 a.m. local time, 7 a.m. local time, I guess. So it's going to be, so I'm hitting 3 to 6, then I'm probably going to bed, Bernsy. So you're on your own after that. I got to get up early, but that's where we're going to be. Not Chip. That's a great idea. And if anybody's flying into Orange County, they should probably handle that with you. Anything else you want to talk about? We got a couple of minutes. We got to fly about. We got to talk Alabama, Georgia, and then these meetings that the Big Ten and SEC are coming up. I was kind of tired because I got home at like 7 or 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and it's a long day, a game day, right? And so I'm up early and I'm doing the rain and the sideline bit, but I'm watching Alabama, Georgia as I'm kind of falling asleep in my bed. And I just keep getting woken up by Chris Fowler, like screaming at me. And when I was kind of had it on in the background because on my drive home, Alabama was up, 31-7, 31-3, whatever it was. Georgia mounts a furious comeback, and then they have back-to-back bombs. Georgia takes the lead. Then Alabama with Serena Williams' nephew or cousin takes the lead. Unbelievable game basically from start to finish. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was in Wausau, Wisconsin, staying there the night before the Green Bay game. That's where we always stay. And watched the first half. We're having dinner. It's like, game's not that boring. I didn't think it was going to be a blowout. And you get back in the second half. And my favorite part of the whole thing was when Georgia makes this unbelievable comeback and they score and they take the lead for the first time. The crowd shots of Bama was like a funeral. I mean, these people were in stunned disbelief.
Cobras everywhere.
It was unbelievable. Just you couldn't help but like feel their pain. Like this was going to be one of the worst collapses ever. And then the very next play goes 75 yards. I don't know that you could see
the way that it did too.
A stadium change in a matter of a minute, whatever long it took for 2 minutes for that to happen. It was unbelievable. Game of the year for sure. And man, I love watching those games because you just see so much talent on the field, and you're thinking these are a bunch of future NFL guys, just really, and just the
17-year-old,
the 17-year-old. I know.
One of the best catches and touchdowns you'll see all year, and then the best part for our older listeners, do you see him hit the dirty bird afterward?
Right,
like it's like he's 17 years old. He don't even know what that's about.
That's a grainy VHS tape. That's a grainy VHS tape he was watching of the dirty bird.
Yeah. As I tweeted, man, college football is undefeated. I mean, it is. I said this a couple weeks ago in here. We complain about NIL and transfer portal and how everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Then you get a game like that, and you're reminded why you love this sport so much, man.
Yeah.
That's where the NFL is probably a better product, but the college game, it's as much as it is the fans, where those fan bases down there will die for those teams. Yeah. They just live, breathe, and die for it. And you love to see the passion within it. Again, we even saw that as the Gophers were mounting their furious comeback. And that's what makes college sports so great, Guardsy.
It does. Yeah, it was fun. And then I couldn't sleep. I was all fired up.
Right,
I'm like, thanks a lot, Fowler. I got more shots of Herb Street's dog. It's like, but it was cool. It was worth it. Speaking of the Big Ten and the SEC, we'll probably talk about this as we get more details out, but it's worth noting that the two power conferences are going to meet in Nashville, kind of neutral territory. I know that's SEC country until we jump in and grab like Middle Tennessee State for the Big Ten or something like that. Or they'll probably go to the Mountain West because the Mountain West is going through a whole thing that we probably should spend some time on at some point. But they're going to meet, and apparently they're going to try to talk about some kind of scheduling model that keeps it consistent. Big Ten is still pushing the SEC to go to a 9th conference game so that everything can be apples and apples. They're also, I think, trying to get a united front on just how much are we going to control the playoff. We know that we're going to control it, but how much are we going to control? Are we going to get 4 teams each? How's that going to go with our friends and our allies in the rest of the Power Four? But it's interesting, and I even said this with Mark Coyle on Saturday. This meeting is being presented as this might be the meeting that changes everything, or it's really not that big a deal, depending on who you ask.
Well, I don't think that there's ever, the way college sports are now, when you have the Big Two meeting, I think it's always a big deal. And I'm of the mindset, who knows, they might get in there and say, let's break away. Let's form our own thing. And you think it's outlandish that would come up in some back room, you know, over some bourbon? Hey, should we break away and create our own set of rules and break away from the NCAA? I think anything's possible. And I think it, you know, the SEC has resisted going to the 9 game for a long time. But I think it probably is a lot of the playoff and how can they get, you know, maximize that and get the most revenue and the most teams into it. So, but the way college sports have changed, it wouldn't surprise me if anything's on the table in those meetings.
I just don't want it to be automatic bids. I want nothing to do with, say, the Big Ten and the SEC get 4 automatic bids each. I want you to go out every single season and earn them.
Yeah, good luck, man. That might be where it's going. It might not be 4, but they might give them 2, and then you get an at-large too. You can get an at-large too.
I just
because they hold all the power. What are the other conferences going to say? No.
You know? Yeah. Well, again, you're seeing even all the Mountain West Pac-12 stuff that's going around right now with teams changing around. I just think my hope is, as a college football fan, I hope that the automatic bid thing doesn't get out of control, because that's where I'll put my flag in the ground of, will there always be multiple SEC and Big Ten teams in the college football playoff? 99% likelihood, yes.
Yeah.
But for that 1% that maybe ever happens, I want the best 12 teams in there. And that's where the automatic bids thing, then you get it just makes it a little bit more complicated to me.
Well, and the idea of going to 12, you want the most representation of the country as you can in conferences and fan bases. So, yeah, you don't want it to be the Big Ten versus SEC challenge. You know, that's not
right.
That's right.
You don't want that. But as we know, TV and dollars control everything. So,
which is how the Gophers have 4 night games in their first 7 compared to maybe 11 a.m. kicks for some of these. Is the Big Ten controls all of that now, and so do the TV networks more than them. So that's how you get 4 night games in your first 7.
All right, guys. Well, look forward to seeing you at the USC game, a 4:30 pregame show on KFAN. The Fox 9 show's at 9 o'clock Central, as it usually is, and then a 6:30 kick against the USC Trojans. First time they've been in Minneapolis in 15 years, 2010. Predates my sideline.
Was that Max Shortell back in the day?
No, he played there at 2011.
He played out there. Yeah, okay. He was the quarterback.
That was my first game on the sideline, USC. Maybe next week I'll regale you with how it took a whole quarter for me to get the right pass. I think I've told you that before.
Yeah,
because it was coming,
that's right.
And it was coming off of the Pete Carroll era. Chip Sky Lane Kiffin was coaching. You know, they're coming off having Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell on the sideline, and things got a little loose at USC, so they had to tighten some things up. And I just had the wrong pass, but to the security guy's credit, couldn't have been nicer about it. He's like, you're wearing, kind of like we were saying, Bernsy, like when Greeter forgets his pass, like you're carrying your laptop in Michigan Stadium. I'm pretty sure you're not going in there to steal anything. I'm standing there with a microphone and a headset. It's pretty obvious what I'm here for.
Right.
So anyway, maybe we'll regale you with some of those other stories a little bit later. But go to jackscafe.com to make your reservations for fall dining, holiday dining, happy hours, brunches, the whole bit. We'll say bye to Chip. We'll say bye to Ryan. And one last time, we'll say bye to Randy. Randy, have a great day, Randy. Thanks for covering us for Sports Byline USA or whoever the hell you work for, even if you are a real person. We appreciate you, Randy Byrne, for making the appearance on the Pair and a Spare podcast. Stay on sides, everybody. We'll talk to you next week on the Pair and a Spare podcast.